Whether one is listening to this in Myanmar or from outside the country, we know this is a very difficult time for many of us. In trying times like these, we can all use a bit more care and compassion in our lives. So on behalf of the team here at Insight Myanmar, I would like to say, in the traditional way metta is offered, may you be free from physical discomfort. May you be free from mental discomfort. May you not meet dangers or enemies. May you live a peaceful and happy life. And may all beings be free and come out of suffering. And with that, let's move to the show.
The project was running quite well. We had lots of activities and especially with the vocational training in the monastery school, and we seen these things in February, and probably like most other people as well, just being shocked by seeing what happened when Aung San Suu Kyi got detained and been putting in the house arrest, and then shortly after that the demonstration started. So we went also out with our teachers. There was tens of thousands of people in Naung Chue that's on the Inle Lake area, and we joined for that demonstration as well. Seeing that bring people from our village and the teachers, bring them over, and we just participated for the time. And we've seen that at this time the demonstrations, they pick up pace and getting bigger and bigger, especially in Yangon and Mandalay and Naypyidaw, the bigger cities. And then we've seen them, they're getting closer to the smaller towns like Taunji. We've seen that. And I remember one morning that was around this 15th of March, I was sitting in the cafe in the morning drinking lapaye, and I seen the military trucks. They came in, three big trucks full of soldiers running in, and couldn't believe at this moment that they are already. Now we've seen it before only on Facebook, and we've seen it in the news everywhere, and seen the shooting and the bombs and all the things happening. And then suddenly we've seen them. They have arrived in Naung Chue, and seen that right after they went in and they blocked the streets off, and they cracked down, especially looking for CDM leaders. They're especially in the medical department and the teachers' education department. They did a lot of CDM in our area, and they was looking after the leaders, and they detained at that day over 30 people and imprisoned them. And we've seen other events right after following. They went over and cracked down on the NGOs. A lot of NGOs, friends of us in this area, we partner organization. They all split up and running away and hiding from them. We know about one good partner organization, friends of us there. I'm also running a school and running an eco hotel and other eco projects and being there. And they got stormed with the military. 150 soldiers stormed their organization. It was looking for the leader, and luckily they couldn't find her at this time. So they also unfortunately took two of the managers, and they detained them and tortured them, trying to press information, trying to press money, and these things are happening right one after the other in these days in the sequence. And then we got the warning that they are also looking after Mudita Foundation. They're looking after me and after other people in the organization. And we've seen that right after that. We know these things going on, and they some police trucks came in our monastery school, and they are they used an excuse why they came over. They said they want to start a vaccine center. I mean, fair enough with a vaccine, but you don't need to come with military or police fully armed 2 trucks and to looking for starting vaccine center. We knew that that happened in other places, and they're also testing out who was for them, who was against them, and to checking out the places. So they went out there and went looking around the buildings and checking out the place. At this moment, I was aware they are looking for the NGO leader, so I'm just running away in the forest, hiding in the forest at this time, trying to be away from that. Other people also just hiding at this time. And they didn't do anything, didn't do much at this time. They went back. But we called all the teachers together and the children together. And then we decided to need to hide now in the place. So we moved over to one building, and just have 2 buildings we had. There was like a viewpoint from the monastery school, and where we could see when the military would come again, when the road is a dead end, our place. So we was hiding there day and the night, especially heading the whole night, the post watching over if somebody come. Mostly they're coming during the night to detain the people. There was very frightening, shocking situation this time. Was all had our bags ready, packed to be able to run in the forest to hide somewhere, and being always alert that something happened. So luckily nothing happened for 2 nights, and I thought even now the situation will go down again. It will get more quiet. Maybe they even going on to other cities and leaving the area. We hope so. I got warned by people in this area that they are looking for us, and that is dangerous, and people suggesting that I'm leaving the place, leaving our project and the monastery. But I wanted to keep everything safe. I knew if I'm leaving now, then everything is finished. The children not safe, the teachers not safe, and the whole project is not safe, and everything is lost what we're been establishing there for the last years. So that's why I try to keep this up. But at this night, I was waking up at 11 o'clock in the night to get a phone call from one of our teachers, and I stepped out of my hut, and I've seen one of our buildings burning very high. She was screaming at me, like, coming down, see what happened. Is can see the flames, can see everything still, like in my mind as it is right now, feeling the same, the feeling again. So I went down actually, and I seen we stopped the fire together with the villagers. They helped out and the whole building burned down to the ground. And it was catching over to another building, and we was luckily could stop the fire there. And immediately after we stopped the fire, it was got come to my mind. I mean, this is what they have done to other places. They're setting fire and doing these, and then they are going and detaining the people. We know there was looking for us, and so they're. I heard from some people later on that they heard shootings before, and some people even told that they have seen the military trucks in the village before. I didn't see that before, because my heart is quite far out. But seeing all the events, what happened before, it was quite clear what's going on here. So for me, it was this situation, only running out in the forest and hiding there to avoid to be catched by them. And there was a few people, they came with me, a few teachers, they came out and was waiting there. And what we seen then next happening, was phoning to other NGOs, friends of us, and telling the situation. And they told us as well, this is quite a common thing happening in other places when they're looking for the NGO leaders or for CDM leaders. They start burning a house, or there's something gets stolen, and then they will tell, so now here's an issue, and now you need to coming to our police office, and then at this moment they say, then they're looking for and trying to catch you. And this is also what happened right after they told us. Now their police came in and they said, what we see here now is there's the building is burned, so we need to clarify the case, who was responsible for that. And those people who are responsible, who are managing the place, that's of course me and another teacher that we're having working there, mainly managing. And they need to come to the police office tomorrow morning by 9 o'clock. And if they are not coming, then we will look after them and we'll catch them. So we knew that this is the situation that happened not only with us, but this is happening anywhere else. And only thing what we have to do is to just run, to just get out of that place as soon as possible, and to get out as over before 9 o'clock. So what happened is that we're organized with other organizations. We have by now have a good network also in Nautschwe, in our area. So they helped us for that, and we get out there with an old motorbike. Had to pass some place where an old police officer, so we knew that they are watching, they're checking. So, but had to pass them. That was quite scary actually to see. They could at this moment was already looking for us, so to be catching us. So, but getting out there, we made it out, and then we was hiding with our friend's place. And seeing that we're getting out as soon as possible. That's what everybody suggested, getting out of the area, because after 9 o'clock, when they will be there, start searching, then we should be already out of the area. So we got the taxi in the end. It wasn't that easy to arrange, but in the end we got it, and we're so lucky being passing the military checkpoints or the police office and the area without getting checked. We was sitting in that car that was all dark windows, so nobody could watch inside. We're sitting there covering ourselves, so we're hoping to not get checked and running in any military checkpoint. So Well, we got out of Shan State very lucky, and we needed to pass over the time and to get to Yangon. We passed 6 military checkpoints, and every time when um, they stopping us and they're looking in the car, looking around, my heart was all of our hearts was beating there, knowing that when um, we're on that list. That's actually what we also got to know while we are just out of the monastery. We knew that they say that we know that you're left and that you're on the blacklist and you will never make it to Yangon, never make it anywhere. They will catch you before. And so by moving over, that was quite terrifying. But in the end, even they did the checkups. They couldn't see us in there. They didn't recognize, luckily, and we made it to Yangon to got safety. And we have good friends in Yangon. They give us shelter, and we could stay there for some time, for another 2 weeks until I get my flight out. And even we was in quite safety there in that place. We hear nighttime as everybody who's staying in Yangon, most people, you hear the shooting, you hear the military trucks, you hear that coming, you hear the bombing. And the daytime when you drive through the city, we had to organize something, you see the military trucks and you see the barricades and the burning. And it's very sad to see my beloved Myanmar, where I've been living for 10 years now, to see it turning into a war zone where with all this fighting and people being afraid. And the same thing, that when I get to the country, I've seen this. People being so afraid to speak out, and everybody is mistrusting each other, seeing that. So being so happy to see this country developing and getting out of this and in the new democracy, and now all these things happening again, and people are in fear. And I can now understand firsthand how it is to live in a military dictatorship only for that short time. I've seen the terror, and people have been living in that for 60 years and longer. So there is really made me understanding much better the country and the people and what people are going through. What for me was the biggest thing then, after I got there, I needed to leave out of the country, and passing that the military checkpoints, or the actually on the airport, the immigration, I had to show my passport, and at that moment it would have been very, very clear. My name is connected there, and I knew before there was one of our friends. He is staying as a reporter from Poland, being detained, very strongly, violently beaten up just a few days before that happened with us. And he's being detained just for taking a few pictures. At the demonstration, they took him and beat him. He almost died in the hospital, and they detained him, and don't know what they did to him. That was quite terrifying. I couldn't sleep days before I went to the airport, knowing that at this moment, in order to leave the country, you have to go through that. And so luckily I went through, and they did check the passport, and at this moment nothing happened. They just waved me through. So I was very lucky that this was I could leave the country and have this, and now be in Germany, back in Germany, and be in safety. So that's something. All these things are still living in my mind, living in my heart. I can still feel that what happened. And what happened in the monastery, this is the other part. It's important to see what is the next shock, what I only discovered after I left out of the place. At the moment when I was leaving the monastery, was on the way to Yangon, we got a word from our teachers that the abbot was in the monastery. He was working. We're longer time with him together. He's was very close and in the beginning of the project, very good working together. And over the time, we knew get closer and closer to the military. I'll tell later more about this. But we didn't know how close he is. And this time it was clear. It got open up more that he is actually was looking at all the valuables and the things in the monastery and wanted to get control out of all the stuff again. We had developed a lot of new buildings for accommodation for the children, for teachers. We have vehicles, cars, computers, and about 100 computers. So there's about a 250,000 euro being invested over the last 3 years. So there's a lot of valuables in that monastery that he was looking on longer time before on it. And because we was working very closely with the NLD office, this is the social welfare office, we also had kind of protection from that. He couldn't step up. He knew what we have done all good in the monastery, so he couldn't do anything to justify anything to kick us out and to take control and doing all these things. But at this time, he's seen his chance, maybe even was planning this with the military, because what was happening, he told us in the evening, in the nighttime, when the police asked us to get to the office, please come here and make the signature. And he told us, you can trust totally, don't worry, you can go there, make the signature. I will guarantee for your safety, everything will be fine. And after that, we didn't trust for that. Logically, being quite obvious what was this about. And the next morning, once we are left, he opened up to all the teachers who were still staying there, still left, and he told that Mokkhita and the other people who were leaving, managing, military was looking after them. They want to catch them because they have been political active and CDM leaders and doing here demonstrations and so on, which is not true. We never lead a demonstration. We just joined that. But anyway, and he made things up of where they've stole money from the monastery and stolen here and there, and that's why the military is looking after us, and that's why they made the fire to be catching us. So at this moment, it was quite obvious. A few hours before, he told us, go to the monastery, go to the police office, do the signature, trust them, I guarantee. And a few hours after, when he knew that we was gone, he actually opened up that they wanted to take us and that he knew that. So he must have known that also just in that night before. And we knew that longer time before he was, we needed to register a few months before the monastery knew with the social welfare office. There was the NLD office. They need a new registration for the school and also for the monastery. And at this time, the abbot he turned his face, what we've never seen before, that he is looking for and measuring all the buildings that Mudita Foundation has established, of course, on the ground of the monastery, but we've been running the monastery, the school completely. We had built all the buildings, paying all the bills, water, electricity, being all taking care and employing the 20 teachers and taking care of the children. So Mudita Foundation was effectively running the monastery for the monastery school and the foundation for 1.5 years at this time. So being seeing that, he measured all the buildings and looking at all the computers and the cars and writing this all down. And then he wanted to write this on his own name, or on the name of a new charity group that he was just started to found. And this time we was surprised and saying, this is not right. That this is Mudita Foundation. We have built all this, and we have bought all the computers and the car and everything here. Of course, this is not for us. This is just for the kids, for the place. And but we need to make sure this is staying safe. This is not going to any other organization. This is Mudita Foundation property, and the buildings are not owned by us, but we're there on, of course, on the land of the monastery. So that's no question, no problem with that. But we need to have the use rights to keep on teaching and using the classroom for English teaching, using the sewing room for the sewing, giving the courses, using the cooking class area for that, or the eco farm and everything. All the buildings where we had or built over 30 structures, like bigger buildings and smaller buildings, a lot of places, and just to keep this safe for a longer time. But we've seen that his intentions of gaining control and getting the things for himself, seen that at this time and a longer time before. And at this time, when the building was burned, he just seen his opportunity, or maybe even was involved in that with the military before, and he took over. And this shortly after, they went through all the buildings and crack open the locks and looking at all the stuff which is inside the buildings and bring them out, putting them together, counting the materials and seeing what happened. And now what I'm seeing right now, what I hear from the monastery, they telling the stories. For example, we have over 100 computers, very good quality computers. We got them donated from another partner school, and they just telling these computers are broken, and they brought them out to even from one monk. He is the brother. He is having a computer shop. They brought it to him out, and the computer have never been seen until now. So they say they are broken. I know they are not broken because I was maintaining them all in that time. So probably they will sell them and not will tell they was all broken and taking the money for themselves. And so things happening like this is very sad for me to see, because over these years we have educated the children, 250 children in that monastery before the Corona situation has hit, and we've been there since 2018 for 3 years now, helping the kids, educating them, working in health and in ecology and education, and seeing that, bringing them to open up their minds. We had a lot of volunteers from all over the world. There was over the 2019, we had over 30 volunteers from all over the world coming from one time. We had over 15 countries, volunteers coming to our place, and had around 20 employees. So that was running very well during this time, and seeing there are so many people been helping for all these years, and the donors supporting for the children to get open-minded, developing critical thinking, analytic thinking. We teaching them also a lot of ethics and civil education about justice and freedom, what it means, what is a good education, teaching them in English, computers. We connecting to international schools, where partner schools from Germany, where from Singapore groups came even over from international schools. From Yangon is an international school. They came over. We have exchange groups. So what I've seen before when I came there, 2018, is that because of the military want to control the people, they have pushed them down and use that very low quality education. They use the system of learning by heart, the rote learning. So the children, they just been screaming at the book, learning everything by heart and not allowed to questioning anything which is in the book. So that's the best propaganda material, and they just don't want the children to thinking for themselves, to have open-minded, critical, analytic, creative thinking. Nothing of reflections was allowed before in the 60 years military dictatorship. And that was exactly what we was stopping, going against that effects of the military, giving a good education, working with this open-mindedness, freeing these minds of the children, helping to develop the best education it's possibly they can get, then teaching them very good in English, and then connecting them to the world by showing them computers and internet, and inviting these international schools, so that they're really empowering the children. By that, also teaching them knowledge of with our eco projects we have in there. We're building the eco buildings. We're having eco farming. They made their own tables and chairs and the handicraft. We had the sewing room, so stitching their own, sewing their own material. A lot of arts, dancing, music. So we really wanted to give them the best education they can probably have, to empower them to living their life. And now when I see that's all lost in the country, and it's lost for the children, when I see that what happened with this, the monks, there are three main monks to see that. This is the Sayadaw Usandima. This is the abbot of that monastery. And there's one second monk, is Utumingala. And then there is another monk in there now. They're called Vipula, and he's a Chinese monk. He's a novice, actually. I ordained him there before to start with to see that Sayadaw. He is been there for a longer time, being the last 1.5 years, being closer to getting closer to the military. And when something didn't go right, while the novices been eating in the evening, for example, some rice and things happening, then he got very angry at this, want to hit the novices, or been having strong talk for them, things like this. I know that is using that power also among the children. That's happening also with the Tumingala, the second monk there. This is quite a common thing in Myanmar, to discipline the children. And he been there when the novice is not listening. I seen him even hitting the novice with a stick. All the children there, 10, 12, 13 years old and younger. And so this is something is been before. When we get to that monastery, we've seen this situation happening. Also monks drinking alcohol. The monk Tumingalai is known in the monastery that he's drinking whiskey in the evening, smelling. Even the Sayadaw knows that he's drinking alcohol and hitting the children. But because there was no possibility of having anybody else there for his replacement, they just getting on with that situation. And I had no control over it to take and have another person, because that was still from the side or the decision. What it was my part in it to make sure that I'm running the everything in the monastery, and that this is keeping safe, that the children are safe, and that these things not happen. So he didn't have that much power when I stayed there. So when I've seen that he hitting him, I went to him. Even I wasn't very, just not angry at him. That also doesn't lead to anywhere. But I talked with him about it and explaining that this is not the way how we're doing it. And it was in the beginning when we reached there quite common from the local teachers to hitting the children and disciplining them and working with this old methods. And this is what we could stop during the time when we was there, bringing this good quality education and respect from towards each other. And now when we're gone, we're going out, I don't know what will happen. It will be these people who are behaving like this, they are still there, and they are now got all the materials, they got the car, and they're destroying everything what we've been working for all these years. And that's very, very hard to see, very difficult to see that. And also, how can monks now, being the Saṅgha, be there shaking hands with the military, taking power and using that? And nobody in the everybody's seen that what we have done I know that after we left the Sayadaw, he called all the villagers in and telling them the story of their being political active, and they're being bad people and stealing the money. And I know that people that we work with, that we hired there, they know that that's not true, and they would even like to speak out to make this clear. And I know that we have this circle on hearing about this, but they can't speak out because now the power of the Sayadaw is there. If anybody would say anything against that, they would be detained by the military, because that's the power of those monks who are working that close.
I can understand that. That's such a dramatic story on a personal level, and of course on the level of everything you were trying to set up and the hopes and dreams of building a better community. And it's a story that illustrates on so many levels the human cost and the human destruction of this mindless act at every level: big cities, small towns, lay societies, business, monastic societies, in monasteries, schools, villages, just top to bottom, the decimation that something like this has caused. And I think in listening to your story, you went back a little bit and described, filled out a bit in the edges what your school was doing and what kind of activities your organization was based in. But I think for listeners that aren't really familiar with what you were trying to do, or what the town was like, or what the style of education was before you came in, there could be a question of like, well, wait a second, why were you a person of interest? Why was this an organization or an activity that the authorities were so concerned about? What was really going on there? So let's take a moment and just step back and go back in time a few years and talk about what brought you to Myanmar, and where the idea and the genesis of this project came from, and what you were trying to do and what you actually did, and get a little bit of a better understanding as to what it was that you were trying to build and what personally brought you there to want to build it, to try to understand a bit how all of those activities and what you were working towards led to this terrifying, dramatic incident of the monastery being set on fire and people being arrested and tortured, and you and others having to go into hiding and to escape and to leave under terrifying circumstances. So let's just go back in time a bit and understand what it was you were trying to do and what brought you there.
Okay. Um, yeah. So first of all, I've been ordaining and now 9 years ago in the monastery in Pa Ok Toyar. This is the south in Molomyine, and practicing there before meditation, living quite simple out in the forest. And at this time, there was some friends of mine or some meditators coming in, and they asked me if I can help them out with some project they're doing. They was in Saṅgha, and they got some donation received. It was just travelers, and they wrote an article about that monastic school, and they're helping in health and education. And I came over and visit, and seen that what they're doing was not much into NGO work at all at this time. It was just practicing the meditation and teaching this, and teaching yoga and that monastery. And but then when I seen that, I just could see after 3 months we invested these 10,000 euro, build a new clinic and a shower block, and bought so many new materials for that school, that made me very happy. And you could see how much impact we have by just helping out in that school for with such not that much money for Western countries. It's huge amount of money uh, for Myanmar, and such a strong impact. And that led me to go back to Germany and start the Mudita Foundation in 2016 to collect more donation and keep on doing that work. At this time, I thought still can go back to the monastery, and I can still practice half year, and then half year I'm doing this charity work. That was my intention at this time. But and what happened over the time, it was quite successful and became more and more of a full-time job, to working and building that the foundation. And that was first of all when we're I raised some funds in 2016, and we didn't have much to start with, just a few thousand euros. And so I came over and travel around Myanmar. Was clear for me was to work in the monastic school, setting this up. And but beside only teaching and the kindergarten and the school, is that I'm also a medical doctor myself, and work in alternative medicine, holistic medicine. And so for that, what I'm mainly focusing on is having a balance of body mind, for your whole life, and your education, and your housing, and your food, and the hobbies, and the community that you're living. How can you live peacefully within, and a balanced lifestyle, which is also sustainable. So that's why this health and ecology aspect came in, and we're was looking for teaming up with different NGOs in Myanmar before I started the project in the monastery, to have the contacts for eco farming, eco building. We built mud houses with clay and with bamboo, and getting the architectural drawing. So it was a year of planning for that, 2017. And then when we started looking for the suitable monastic education school, we went to Taengu, which is located on the Inle Lake in Namche. And that was a perfect place. It's a beautiful mountain area, very large compound. And I was talking with the abbot at this time, to telling the plans, and he was very open and said, "You're very welcome to join here, to come in and start working here, doing." And I was glad having this good cooperation. I was traveling with that abbot at this time around, and seeing what he's doing, and to building trust to each other. And he has over 10 monasteries at this time, and been very busy organizing different places. So we've seen he's a good guy, has a good heart, helping out. What he's not very often in that monastery. Also later on, he only came for a few weeks a year to the monastery. But he told me that this place he doesn't have too much support. So he is happy when we're coming in, NGO coming in. We're working with ecology and health and education, this modern education. He's very interested in all of these aspects, and he invited us in, and he gave me a lot of freedom to develop everything. So we could freely develop the buildings. We could freely develop the education system, bringing in modern education to the transforming the education system, which was actually done by Aung San Suu Kyi and the NLD. Was this time is a big reform of the education system going on in Myanmar. Who are not people not living in Myanmar, they may be not familiar with that, but this been running since a few years now. They are recognize this learning by heart, this rote learning, is one of the most harmful things happening to Myanmar, and now they are all transforming this education system. So we was shaking hands there with Aung San Suu Kyi and being happy to facilitate that transformation of the education system and adding this up with these ecology aspects. I'm coming from the background of Waldorf education for myself, so I value this creativity and critical analytic thinking, and the close to nature aspect. So that's why we started at this place, the eco farm. We are growing our own food and building these houses in a natural style with earth and bamboo, and in many aspects being self-sustained. That was what I wanted to teach the children. Where does your food come from? How do you prepare a nice meal in the cooking class that we teach? And then how do you now you build your own house? We build these houses in the handicraft class and small houses for the children, like puppet houses. And then later on, we say now we build it in the real house and make a pavilion with the children, so they could make the experience by themselves, working with bamboo, working with different materials, then making their own chairs, own table. In pottery, we started pottery class to educate our teachers for that, and had the plan to build a pottery workshop. That was next step, so they can make their own plates and cups. So being sustainable, living with nature, and within in the balance in nature. So that's something. Beside this, we wanted to teach them modern education and bring it in, that they have very good English and computer knowledge. Bring the internet in. We had, and the end was ready after COVID to open. Every classroom would be set up with projector and with computers for the teachers, internet in the monastery. So that we're teaming up with these international schools and that these visiting groups coming in. So this is what the combination of a holistic education, close to nature, Waldorf, Maria Montessori, to bring this in, and then also bringing the bridge over for a very modern education of project-based learning and interaction, having video conferences with other schools abroad. So this was the mission of Mudita, to get this in, and it was running very well until the COVID hit. We had over 250 children in the monastery. We had around 20 employees, which was teachers, but also the people working on the eco farm. We had cooks in the end, two cooks, there, and we have a maintainer also taking care, and we have a lot of volunteers. We had over 30 volunteers in the highest times who help maintaining the building, renovating. We're working on the farm, teaching, many of them teaching, and joining projects. Also, university students from Germany, they came over, stayed for a few months, and did projects there, which is part of their studies. We had guest teachers coming in from different places of the world to teaching, educating our teachers. There was another plan. We're really focusing on educating our teachers to bringing in the best education that we can deliver. So that was all running very well. And then the COVID hit, and we've seen that this time most of the students had to leave out of the place according to government rules, and going back to villages, home villages of when they don't have parents, their uncle, or otherwise to their relatives, to their parents. And then there we had just a small number of children staying in the monastery. I think the last podcast we talked about this more, what happened. So when people are interested in that, maybe we can link it somewhere in. So we had some good times as well, beside this tough times and the COVID situation, being in the lockdown, but being also quite good by having time with the volunteers to meditate, doing yoga and fasting. I've been doing some fasting courses and giving some treatments like auto blood therapy and other things for that. So we used the time also to maintain the buildings. We did a lot of new buildings during this lockdown time, COVID times. And in the end, we started again in January to say, even the school can't open yet, but we are focusing on the villagers and educating them and we started a cooking class for the youth. We started the sewing room, vocational training, and sent our teachers for the first aid course to the hospital, to teaching this further on to the villagers. Started this pottery workshop. Started eco-farming, eco-building, and had various classes of English and computer and civil education. So that was running quite well, coming up again. And then in February, the coup happened. And of course, this threw everything over.
Right. And that, I'm just blown away hearing you describe how this school was being set up. It's like this really dynamic and amazing symbiosis of East and West coming together. You are a meditator turned into a monk who is coming to the country for a very serious Dhamma practice at Oak Monastery, and you get hooked on the culture and the people and want to stay on and want to see how you can give more. And you obviously have skills in your lay background that you have to offer, and connections with donors and an organization that you set up. And then you make this school in this beautiful place. It sounds like an idyllic place. And I know Mianxue, it's a tourist backpacker destination as well, although I'm sure you were a bit off the main drag there. But you set up this beautiful site of, you're in a beautiful physical location, but then you set up this kind of organization that is combining the best of this East and West. On the one hand, you obviously have the meditation and the power of the Buddhist teachings and this local Buddhist community that is supporting each other and working together. And that's kind of the grounding base of what brought you there and how the community is functioning. But then on top of that, you're teaching them so many things, organic farming and experiential learning and building, being independent, not only in terms of what you grow, in terms of what you eat and how you cook, and then what space you're living in and how you're able to use natural materials to build something that is pleasant and functional to be able to live in. You're doing yoga and all kinds of vocational skills like the sewing and the pottery. You're doing ecotourism and well, just eco adventures of all different kinds in a place that is naturally just beautiful. And so it's this beautiful story up to even through the COVID period. I know that you had some difficulties then, as everyone did, but you were managing and innovating. And yeah, I definitely encourage anyone to go back and listen to that episode. We'll link in the show notes where we checked in with you last summer and just talked about how you were managing COVID on a personal level and on an organizational level. And even through that, your site is still managing, but it's just this beautiful symbiosis and fusion of the best of the East and the West, of bringing together different elements from both societies in order to provide a kind of education and holistic experience and growth to these village kids that in their previous years of a dysfunctional society and political system and the economics that went along with it just aren't getting a chance. And as the country starts to open up politically, and you reference what the NLD was doing and you reference some of the educational reforms, and people started to feel a bit safer to be able to do their own and create their own, you're taking advantage of this window of opportunity to bring these different elements together and provide this extraordinary and unprecedented opportunity for these village kids to grow and be educated and valued and connected in their community in a way that's on the ground. You're not imposing something on them that is foreign or that is different from their own cultural mindset, but you're integrating into what they're already doing and who they already are and how their communities are actually working. But you're bringing them different tools and different learnings and different curriculums that allow them to use their potential in ways that they hadn't before. It's really this beautiful story that is developing. And then, of course, February 1st happens, as you were just getting into, and they literally set fire to it. Like what a horrific metaphorical image for what happened. I mean, they literally try to burn down what you built physically and metaphorically as well, to intimidate and harm the people who did it, to steal and confiscate probably the materials that were intended for that. And, the story is not yet finished. This is an ongoing tale that we're all working to try to influence the outcome. So we don't know how this is going to end. And as I keep saying, every little thing that we do matters. And there are things that all of us can do to support the people in this. But at least what's happened up till now is they have really threatened and jeopardized this beautiful thing that was being created for something that really doesn't benefit anyone. Maybe it benefits a few select people, but the harm that it causes to a community and to the benefit and the potential they were getting, it's just tragic.
Yeah, this is the situation. What I see that it's not only us, of course, being even just looking in the Inle Lake, and I've seen there's organizations they invested millions of dollars into their projects. Like they mentioned this partner school, they got stormed with these 150 soldiers. There was very famous in this area, have a lot of NGO projects, and they're a similar school than we have set up. And so a lot of them, all of the NGOs there, they're just being smashed. And if they not detain the leaders, then they're in hiding and they're still running away. And what I see that is still my father. He sometimes can't get and saying, why is it that the military is chasing you? Why they did this to you and to the others? But you are the one who helped the children in that country so much. You're the one who educated and did everything you could for the last years, bringing all the donations and doing this. So you're the one they should should help, should praise, should support. But that's exactly what's the thing. Everybody who's done good for the country, bring the children and the people open-mindedness and freedom and prosperity, and who are creating these democratic values and bases. They are the threat for the military. No, the military, they don't want this free-minded, open-minded people who are maybe even connected to other countries, having very good networks and NGOs and international schools. That's the biggest threat to them. Whoever is doing good in this country, want freedom, justice, and democracy, they are under pressure. They get chased. They get shot at. They get tortured. So that's heartbreaking for me. When I was still now, but when I was in the country and seeing that situation, being I went from anger to fear to emotions like a roller coaster going up, and just heartbroken to see this country that I love so much, the people I love so much, give everything in that project for being chased and tortured and being killed. It's incredible to see that, incredibly painful.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I just want to take a moment on something you just said. You mentioned how the love you have for this country, for the people. And we're running this parallel series on our podcast called Love Letters to Myanmar that is exploring this theme of what balancing the heavier tales that we're discussing here with the people that are really indebted and feel a sense of connection to the Golden Land and to the people. And although we're having quite a heavy conversation here, just to bookmark that and go into your connection here, to go back even a few years before all of this happened, to when you first arrived in the country, when you came for Dhamma practice, when you started to feel something at a heart level of wanting to be here and to stay longer and to serve to a greater capacity than just your own practice. So can you take a moment and just share with us, what does this country mean to you? What do the people mean to you? What do the spiritual teachers and teachings mean to you? Where did this connection come from? And what kind of words could you put on it?
Yeah. I've started in 2005 my meditation practice with Goenka, and did the 10-day course here in Germany, and been by that experience, the 10 days, been transforming my mind and my life totally, been totally blown away by that process. Could work very, very deeply in letting go of a lot of kilesas, negativities in my mind I had this time. And I really found my path. I knew that this liberation I experienced, this happiness and joy, this is what I will go on, this Dhamma path, the rest of my life. That was for me very clear at this time. And then I got kind of a retreat junkie, let's say that, being there when did until now over 40 retreats by sitting, 10-day courses and sitting and serving, long courses as well, being quite involved in that tradition. And that was already Goenka. She is coming from from Burma and been living in Burma for a longer time, Indian-Burma connection. So that's the, and I've seen the video, I remember, after my first course, where Goenkaji made this tour around Myanmar and visiting all to his Dhamma places, his Dhamma fathers. And when I've seen that, it somehow hit me so deeply. I never experienced something like this before, but I must have remembered something, or somehow it was very deep connection to seeing the monks and seeing the people there. the pagodas and this pilgrimage tour. So I knew I have to go there. I have to get deeper into that. And then a few months later, I also flew over and was in the got some questions that for the meditation nobody could answer to me in Germany. So I was looking for good monks, the monastery, and got my answers and very good explanations. And I knew this is the way that I have to go for. And at this time, even they asked me to if I want to ordain. Museum by that experience, you should ordain here, practicing and here. But there was not the time. So after a few years later, when I came back to ordain, and then I flew over to Myanmar and was looking for a good monastery and good Dhamma teachers, and to answer my questions that I had. I found a very good monastery near Yangon, and the monks was very kind, the abbot, and he answered me that all my questions I was looking for, and he told me, by that experience that you made, you should stay here and become a monk, and just pick on up on this and go deeper. And for me, it was clear I couldn't do that at this time. I was still married. Was for 11 years married. My life before I became a monk, and was still in my medical studies, and so I couldn't really go on with that. But I knew it after I finished my studies, and then I came over to Myanmar to at least become a monk for half year. And at this time, it was the most deepest experience in my life, connecting to the Buddhist culture, to the Saṅgha, and also to the Burmese culture. And for even this time, I went around for Pindapata, going around picking up the food, this alms round that the monks doing. And then I remembered when I went over to the alms round, I always go 2 hours are in the village nearby, and walking around the morning, and I seen about picked up the food around 100 houses in that village, and the people was very poor, and they only have their little bamboo huts. Sometimes they didn't even have money to fix their roof, and there was just some leaf roof, and they had holes in there. It was hardly any money we would need to spend to fix this, but they didn't have much. And but still, all of the houses, are 95%, the people, they stand every morning in front of the house and giving me a spoon of rice, and then they're cooking their curries and they're giving the fruit. And seen that. Remember one situation where one girl was there with a very poor house, and I passed in the morning. I passed to them, to their house, and I've seen they didn't watch at me, and I felt pity not to go to them and asking for the food. And then I just went further, and she was after when she got to know that I haven't came to her house, she was looking after me and running half an hour through the village, and was finally found me with this apple in the hand. I was so glad to be able to give this to me and paid respect. And these was moments where I almost cried often enough that tears was running, just being inspired by these people with so beautiful hearts, giving everything they have just to support the Saṅgha, the monk. And there was always, wherever I'm going, people were so friendly and so good-hearted, and invited me for tea to their place, and I've been sitting there giving them some blessing. And this symbiosis was such a beautiful thing I experienced from the Buddhist culture and the Burmese culture. And I always had in mind of these years of support, how can I um, give something back to them? How can I thought about even I can collect some donations via friends, and we can build a new well, or we can build something for them, something to improve their life. But I couldn't really see at this time how that works. And then this opportunity came to me to coming over to go into the monastic school. Friend of friends asked me from Switzerland, friends, to support them, to invest this money to see what we can do there. And first, when I started this and been helping, and I can see the children being developing. We had over this highest time over 150 children coming to our clinic room. There was now there are over 3,500 children in that monastic school. It's called Aumia U in Saṅgha Hills. So to seeing that amount of suffering of the children in there, and with all these pus and bruises and for these bacterial infections and diarrhea, and such amount of suffering, and be able to start this clinic room, and with the nurse working there together, employing the nurse, and that just gave me so much of joy, to be able to give something back to that country, to the children, to these beautiful people. And this was always, since the beginning for me, a symbiosis of practicing meditation, going deeper in my meditation practice and samadhi, and on the other hand, sharing and giving something, doing service. This is for me the perfect symbiosis. Even in the monastery, when I was there, I was treating in the Paog, I was giving treatments to the monks, giving them massages and injections with neural therapy. It calls working with the nervous systems, deleting the pain memory, and I give them Thai massage and some Chinese practice with acupuncture and so on. So I was even that time giving service was always something that enhanced my practice and made me incredibly happy and supported my meditation as well. So this, I could bring this all together with the Mudita Foundation, and having this project where I can teach the meditation, can teach yoga, focus on the Dhamma. Also, the volunteers was very interested in the meditation and yoga practice, most of them at least. And so they could share this share the Dhamma, and then also bring this in this holistic lifestyle where we're living with making our own food and cooking together, and building our houses and materials, and sharing a beautiful life with the children. So that been something that also living there with the teachers, seeing the children and the villagers getting closer to the culture, have just been a beautiful time, beautiful years of my life. Yeah.
Yeah, I can certainly imagine that. And I'm also curious where you find your Dhamma practice and your spiritual experience fitting into this. I mean, you've been in Myanmar for a while, even before COVID. I'm sure you faced a number of difficulties there, personal as well as some of the ambitions you had of what you were trying to set up and what you were trying to do. And I'm sure that your background in the Buddhist teachings and in Dhamma practice and meditation played some kind of role in helping you manage those ups and downs. And we checked in with you last summer when the COVID pandemic was hitting. This was an unprecedented, really scary time for a lot of people in terms of not knowing how bad things were going to get and how fast things were going to spread, especially in Myanmar, where the world was getting cut off and there weren't the same kind of medical resources available there as there were in other countries. And, there was real fear and trepidation about what would happen. And when we talked to you then, you acknowledged that, but you also drew upon these real spiritual resources of your Dhamma practice and what the Dhamma was teaching you and teaching everyone about this time and what was a priority, and just some really beautiful life lessons of how that practice was helping you get through this challenging time. And yet, the challenging time we're facing now is another order of things. It's just a completely different scale of what it is we have to process and get through. And the circumstances are, above and beyond as bad as it was last year with the pandemic. So, following up on the interview we had with you last year, where we talked about the pandemic, I want to ask the same question of you. How is your Dhamma practice playing a role right now? How is it helping you, or are you feeling overwhelmed at times? But in general, what role is your meditation practice and the Dhamma playing in how you're trying to manage and get through these days?
So I could see over this time, as you just mentioned, seeing different aspects of the reality, to see that during the COVID times, not only seeing the hardships that we are all facing, and mostly we are looking for ourselves and why I am so bad here, hidden with the pandemic, and but we also need to looking at different perspective and seeing. First of all, the Dhamma is teaching, the Buddha is teaching us dukkha. Dukkha is the reality, the suffering that we are all facing. So we're not alone with this situation where, with the COVID, and especially now with the also with the monastery, the military coup that happened. It's not only us; it's the whole country. Everybody is in the same boat, and not only our country, it is also the world. You can look over to other places in the world. You've seen in Syria, you've seen in Africa, you've seen in Russia, you've seen anywhere where you look, you see fires. If this is politically, or with the climate change, with the pandemic, with war, civil war starting. So this is our times we have, and we're living in, and it always has been like this, and been sometimes been more peaceful in between, while we had world wars going on. We have a lot of challenges, and in the history, when we look, there've been always things in there. And so that's on the global level, and then of course on the personal level as well. We're having these world wars in our life as well, these pandemics, these situations, and just by the Dhamma, I've been in my life through so many ups and downs, so many situations. I've been working with many different jobs, also in working in tourism management. I had my own camp on Corsican island before, there for 2 years, and I was working in marketing for some time. Was working in some part time at the financial advisor for the bank, for the German bank. I was quite young at this time, and I was working in the medical side, working as a male nurse also for 5 years. Working, so I have many jobs, many ways I pass through, and every time when I've seen that this is not, it doesn't lead me to growing more in my mind, then I let go of it and I start new. I press the reset button and I start a new situation in my life, a new location, a new project, with new people, and this has not been easy, but I had this especially with the meditation, it helped me a lot. And some Dhamma I always had in my life of these background of letting go of whatever has been in the past and accepting the reality as it is in that moment, and gaining through that mindfulness and equanimity the strength to go on. And what I actually can see over the time, over the years, now that every time I face through some difficulty, also what we had in the pandemic situation, or even now with with the coup happening and all losing this, what I built there the last years, that I grow every time out of it, and until now in my life, when I be honest, it always got better. I've been always more strong, more experienced, and any hardship in my life. We have a saying, I don't know if you say that in English as well, would it doesn't kill me, makes me stronger. And that's what I experienced in my life. And even looking for this project that I started, I was only able to do this, the management there, and because I went through all of these experience in my life before, working for the bank, working for a marketing a firm, and then working in tourism management, my medical background, all of these areas, they helped me incredibly. And also my 5 years beside my medical studies, working as a male nurse, I made a lot of experience from that helped me understanding how to treat the children, how to help best. So all of these things, I seen that just adds up the whole in my life coming in. So that's yeah. So when I see for the future where we're going now, I that made me help me a lot for accepting that situation now, where I'm standing now in my life. And what I know for sure is that I didn't know few years ago, that clearly that there's only two things in my life what I will always do, and this is the Dhamma. I will always practicing the Dhamma. This is my life going on that path. If there is yoga or the meditation or Buddhist psychology that I'm into, shadow work, and then also teaching that out to my students, sharing the Dhamma, practicing together, organizing the retreats, bringing people into a deep process of purifying their mind, and then setting this up into a project, which is for me holistic health, holistic life, in on all levels, and that's mudita.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And going back to one thing you talked about, how meditation has always taught you to accept the reality as manifesting. That's certainly one of the primary goals of any meditation technique or practice you're doing, especially within Theravada, is accepting at some level, depending on what you're being asked to observe and to concentrate on, the reality that is in front of you and manifesting. And as we know with emotions, when we have some level of sadness or disappointment or anger or those other emotions, they're often a sign that we're not comfortable or not accepting the reality that's before us. And so we're manifesting this emotion that's not very skillful or useful, but it at least helps us in some way to deal with not being able to accept the reality that's before us. And yet in this case, one of the things that I've had to learn, and I'm wondering where you're at this in your journey, is I've had to learn an acceptance of the kinds of things I never in my life would have thought I would have had to accept. And in doing so, I've learned that this might be uncommon to me. As you referenced before, this is not necessarily uncommon to humanity. These are things that come cyclical and regular to humanity, and maybe they touch you and maybe they don't. But for me, it's involved some kind of acceptance of a terror state, of a lawlessness, of random killings and tortures and sexual assaults, lack of freedom and human rights, of kidnappings and abductions, and lack of free speech, and on and on and on. So when I had to examine my own difficult emotions, that was coming as a reaction to a kind of reality that I simply couldn't wrap my mind around could be existing. And part of my own process in being able to respond to this reality was at a core level to accept that this is what was happening and to not respond with the same amount of shock and surprise and horror and these other very human emotions after living so many years of my life where these things were taken for granted, and having to just accept the depths of the cruelty and inhumanity and suffering and terror that was happening, not just in the news and not just daily occurrences, but that was impacting the people I care most about in the world. Every single person I knew was at risk. Anything could happen to them at any moment, and there was nothing that anyone could do to protect them. And getting calls and messages from people that were scared, rightly so, and trying to adapt to this. And so for me, a lot of overcoming my own trauma, even though I'm not in the country and I'm not, my personal safety isn't impacted, but the personal trauma of dealing with this every day and talking to people who did, was to gain some kind of acceptance or acknowledgement that this was happening. This would continue to happen. Worse things would probably happen. And to just ground my mind in this truth that I never thought I would have to accept at that level. And once I did, there was a certain kind of detachment. And okay, this is what's happening. How do I respond? What do I do? And within that response, there have been breakdowns. I mean, there have been serious breakdowns where it's just become overwhelming. And I deal with that when it comes, but it hasn't been the daily occurrence of, oh my God, oh again, and that weight on and on and on. That was something that was let go of through that acceptance of the reality, which I did not want to accept. But once I did, it allowed me to, to not spend my time in recoiling with aversion and shock, but to spend my time feeling whatever I felt and then saying, okay, this is what's happening. This is not surprising. More of this will happen. What can I do? How can I sit from my place? And as a meditator, that was kind of the inner spiritual process I went through. You obviously were touched at a very depth level. I mean, you were there when this happened. You had put so much time, energy, money, volition into what you were creating, and you and so many people around you, and the whole project was it was literally burned. Not just metaphorically burned up, but they literally took fire to this dream that was manifesting and taking place. And so I'm curious about your spiritual journey in how you have come and worked towards trying to accept the reality that is, and where you had mentioned going through these really intense feelings, even after you came back from Germany, of fear and rage, and where these emotions came, how they manifested, how you worked with them, and how that was balanced with how you were able to accept or not to accept, what stage you're at now in terms of what is being manifested.
Yeah, yeah. I think from the beginning on, when this situation happened, when the burning happened, was running away, or I could find myself being pretty calm, pretty clear, maintaining to that. I never knew, when I get into a situation like this, how I would react. Would I be just freeze in fear, or being scared and or angry, or what would be my state? And I could find something that I could also hear from hear the reports about other people who've been reading this. Seems to be this kind of a mental phenomena there, that in these emergency situations, your mind just stays very focused and clear, to be just for taking care for your survival, to be cut off from the feeling, that deeper underlying sadness and anger which is there. And so that was interesting before. I've seen that as kind of a I thought before that's part of the equanimity that I have trained, but actually it's not. It's maybe part of this, but much of it was a survival mechanism, just getting through that. And then once I reached the safety in Yangon, and I was just talking about this with my family and with everyone. This moment, first time, I felt all this sadness and despair about what happened to me, but also what happened to all people in the country now experiencing this firsthand, this deep suffering, being so deeply connected to that at this moment. And then the tears start coming and flowing out, and it felt very good to finally, yeah, opening up to all these emotions that coming in there, and that's been the process. Then being also looking into that, and this anger comes up for the people, for the military, and for the sayador and the monks who were staying in the monastery, who were what I think that the Saṅgha is such a noble group of people. This is how the Buddha is establishing us for our practice, and then looking at you for monks taking that position and that power, shaking hands with these power structures, and taking this all for themselves and for their ego and for their power game. That was something most painful, feeling that. And of course, when I was uh, still in Myanmar, there was also the fear of what happening when I'm leaving the country, or hearing in the night the bombings and the shootings. That was very scary. Have to work with. I know we had our people that I was with. Some time they get into it. There was just some clapping from somebody close, a rubbish bin outside, and I could hear this happening, and we are, in my mind, immediately this picture came. Now the military come and they will are hitting in, and all of us had this. Just a situation where you just have a noise, and this noise is obviously nothing going on, but these pictures coming up. So we had these traumas, which is normal. I think everybody who's going through that can experience that. And for me, in my case, I could see that the mindfulness kicks in very quickly, and can see this is something only going on here. This is not the reality what's there. And I could observe my feeling. I could observe my heartbeat. I could observe the sweating, and the training automatically kicks in, and I calmed down quite quickly. And I could see this from other people who was with us, who didn't have that much of meditation training. They went into a panic attack, and coming for this, and a lot of difficulty to stay calm. And this time I could be of help to bring them down again. So that was something I can see after this period of cut off from my emotions, to be opening up again, to feel it, and allow myself also to feel the anger, allow myself to feel the pressure, the sadness also for the loss what we have, and feel this heartbrokenness of what is happening in the country, of all my friends when I'm contacting to them, and see what's going on. So sad to see for everyone, for the whole country, for that generation, and people they're giving their lives. So that's something in difficult to take. But again, for seeing the Dhamma is seeing the dukkha. That's there. We all in this world suffering, all suffering beings. It's not everything is suffering. There's a lot of joy. There's sukha as well, but dukkha is apparent, and it looks for me, as you said as well. See that in a similar way. This doesn't get better. It looks like in the world these political situations getting stronger. These autocratic ruled countries, they teaming up and getting stronger and get more. We see that the climate change making things not better. This coronavirus now going all over the world. Seeing what happening now in India, for example, is hard to see. So seeing that and taking it in to see that's the state of our world. That's the state of Myanmar. This is what we are going through, and in my lifetime, we'll probably see the world as we know it more and more disappearing. It's already disappeared. The world before COVID, I don't think it will ever be the exact same world. We will not see the same things. No, we will. It already has changed in many ways, and things will get more and more difficult over the time. And I am prepared for this. This is something that I'm feeling. I'm not. I'm not scared of this and want to hide away. Or I have a very good situation here in Germany. There's a very comfortable place to stay. Get a good house. I can work here again in medicine if I choose to, and say I have a good life, I have a good salary, and go skiing, go on holidays, doing things if I want to. But that's not some life that I would choose by ignoring the state of the world. And for me, it's feeling the responsibility to do something against that suffering that happens in the world. And that's also in the same time the greatest joy I feel, because I can feel that suffering of the world inside my heart, in my mind. And I feel I want to do something to lessen that suffering a bit, not being in the illusion I could ever stop that suffering, or even significantly bringing it down for that. But I can do a little bit. I can do a little bit for a few people, for a few children, to show a better future, to bring this in. And this is the best way how I can spend my lifetime here, and best for me and best for others. And that's something, when I see that if more people just going in that direction, and they're getting more and more, that's what I see, then we wouldn't be there. We wouldn't be in that big trouble, or we could at least make it a bit better. But that has been always, like the Buddha said, there are only little people with few people with less dust in their eyes who can really understand the Dhamma. So it never been a majority of people practicing Dhamma. It's been always a small minority and people that could really understand. And that is the reality of the world. There will be suffering, and there will be few people who are understanding, and who are doing something against it. Fortunately, they're getting more now, but those people who are going and harming, they're also getting stronger. So we need to see on which side we are, and what we are living in ignorance and pulling off in safety and pulling up the walls, and like the countries more and more doing, and saying America first or Germany first, or what, trying to protect the resources, but looking for where we can actually share and opening up and helping each other, and experience this for yourself. That's for me at least. That's the greatest joy, the best time I can spend my life. lifetime with.
Yeah, and I think,
Mm.
as you mentioned before, you don't really know how you're going to respond in a time of crisis until it hits you. And any kind of person you think you are or you think you act, I think when you're in that time of a real difficult situation, that's where you find out who you really are, what you're made of, and you also find out who your friends are. You know, you find out who is there to support you in those times when things are not going well. That's a true test of mettle in that case. As I mentioned, I went along this process of trying to examine where these feelings were coming from and how they were manifesting, what purpose they served, and eventually, as I mentioned just recently, that was where I learned that these feelings in me were coming from a place of just not wanting to accept reality, not wanting to live with how fast things had changed in the country and how many of my friends were now at risk. And once I was able to make a mental shift to grounding myself and yes, this is really what's happening, I was able to be much more balanced right away and just much more grounded and look not at how horrified am I by what's happening, but okay, what's happening and what can I do about it? Where do I fit in? And, but that didn't mean that I was detached from emotions or from, what was actually taking place and how it was hitting me. It wasn't hitting me as steadily, but it would come out at times that were unexpected. One of the most dramatic and intense encounters that happened to me is at one point I was taking a walk through the neighborhood and I was just after a hard day of work at the computer, I was just getting out, getting some air, getting some exercise, trying to be in nature and relax my mind and body. And as I was on the way home, I passed by a house and there was a boy about 12 years old or 15 or something left the house and he was on his way to play for like an adventure. And in his adventure, he was dressed fully in black and he had a big backpack and in the back, and he was wearing like goggles. And in the backpack, he had two baseball bats. It was obviously just a boy out to go in the countryside just to go have his own little adventure. And when he came out of the house, I stopped paralyzed in the street and I literally didn't know what I was seeing because I was looking at someone the same age and wearing the same things as the kinds of people that were going out in the street every day to protest, that were wearing those kinds of things to protect themselves against being beaten and killed and arrested by the police. And we also were collecting donations and sending them to protest groups. So we were actually helping protest groups be able to protect themselves in this way, knowing the violence they were facing. And I just had this profound moment of disassociation. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what I was seeing. Part of my mind knew that I was in America, but I didn't understand how what I was seeing could take place in America. And so I thought maybe I was in Myanmar. I mean, this was all happening in a split second. So I just had this moment of like confusion in my mind of what was taking place. And my palms were sweaty. It was a really intense moment. And when I realized after a couple seconds, this is a boy going out to play, but he looks like those people over there in Myanmar. The shock of that realization, I literally broke down and cried in the middle of the street. I had never done anything like that before. I was all of this trauma, all of this managing day after day to be able to do the work and get the job done and deal with all these difficult stories and images and the support that we were doing, the people that we were talking to, all of it that I was managing. I wasn't suppressing, but I also wasn't really processing in full because I had so much to get done. At that moment when there was nothing I had to do except take this walk, which was supposed to be a stress relief and turned into the opposite, at that moment, this experience of disassociation was just too much for me. It was just it just collapsed me. And just the realization that this boy is walking out of his house to go have fun and he's going to come back and they don't even think twice about it. This is what happens in normal society. I was so far removed from remembering what safety and normal society were that I was remembering and associating with what was happening in Myanmar, where those boys that same age were coming out and they weren't coming back, or they were coming, even if they did come back, they knew the risks that they were taking. They knew the dangers. They knew, everyone knew the stakes. And that terror just hit me with a reality that I hadn't been facing at that level before. And it exploded in me. I just broke down crying in the middle of the street, and I had about 15 more minutes till I went home. I cried the whole way. And I'm not the kind of person that just cries at the drop of a dime or at a movie or whatnot. It's not so common for me. But and I've never cried in public like that. But that experience was so traumatic. Yeah, yeah, and so I think that for those of us that are not in Myanmar, that are either Burmese exiles, expats living abroad and supporting the country, or foreigners like us that feel this deep sense of connection and this debt of service that we're providing, our bodies might be here, but our minds and our hearts and our lived experience are over there. Our time zones of when we sleep, when we eat, when we work, they're based on Myanmar time zones. They're based on Myanmar internet and connectivity, and our realities of what we're facing, who we're talking to, what we're experiencing, what we're thinking about. It is all over there. And sometimes I step out of my house and I do forget where I am. I do I see people walking around in safety, and I kind of don't understand it sometimes. Those are more minor points of disassociation.
Yeah, I totally can feel with you for that. I've been in there for the last weeks here since I'm back in Germany to organizing things for people in Myanmar. I had also one of the teachers. She already traveled over to Germany to organize the visa and her new start of her life with her job and studies and everything. So we have to being there and looking for the teachers and helping them organizing things. And I've been the last weeks with my mind just in that in the country in the same way than you are, checking back with people, with volunteers and teachers, and seeing what's going on there, and seeing with the news. I'm traveling every day with my mind back into the country, and as you say, that what is incredible for me is by hearing these things and seeing the pictures, I literally feel that when I am back in that place. I think that's what they call post-traumatic stress syndrome. What I never knew what that means before. When you get some triggers like the pictures, and you have seen these things going on, and you literally feel like this. The building is burning on fire again. The military is there and chasing you, and having this situation. It all comes back, and yeah, being connected. And I think this is something for many people. Even you have a common experience that even not being in the country also right now, but you're being with your mind there, talking to people, and you hear their emotions. You're have the interview with them, and you're being with the news, and so you're so deeply connected to Myanmar that your mind is literally traveling there and experiencing that. And of course, it's something for someone who has lived there that long time and had just recently experienced these terrors going on. Of course, brings it even stronger back because the pictures are there. But I think anybody who has also family there, I have a lot of Burmese friends here in Germany, and I feel with them as well. They have all their family there, and they are so scared about they might harm their children or uncle or the parents or anybody from their family. So they must suffer also much more than we can imagine by phoning and listening to that news. So I think we're all we all in that, living in parallel worlds. Part of the mind is still in Myanmar, and even I'm here. And one thing that especially struck me that you said before is this feeling of safety. When I arrived in Germany and I set foot on land here, out of the airport, um, this feeling of you are safe. You are safe. And I had a very a feeling of bliss, of happiness, of big relief just by feeling safe. And this was something people here, they cannot understand. They cannot understand that they take this for granted to living in a country, living in a place where when I've seen the police here in Germany and on the airport, and seen them checking me, they're checking my bag or for something in the security point. But of this as soon as I see somebody in uniform, this fear comes up again. No, they can take you, they can do. But having in my mind is the next seconds after to see, but they don't. They're actually German police and they're here to help you. They will not do that. And that's something incredible to see. There is a policeman and he will not torture you. He will not put you in prison. They will not steal things. They'll do things to you. And when you move out, you can move freely, going anywhere, saying anything. That freedom, I never experienced that before, is a big blessing to live in such a place. And when I'm looking now over in the world, I have my view at the world has changed forever. I see that. How is it in Africa, in this, with these warlords going on there? How is it in the Middle East, in Syria and Afghanistan? They're so afraid now the Taliban taking over when the UN is moving out there, the blue helmets. Um, Now, looking at Myanmar, it goes on and on. You can look all over in the world, so many places of the world, people experience the same like they experience in Myanmar, or very similar. They're not safe. So that this is such a big privilege that we are living in a place where we are don't need to be afraid to be captured and detained and tortured. That's such a blessing for it, and that brings also responsibility for me to being able to enjoy that, being able to feel that it's all right. This my karma as well being here, but I'm not staying just here as well. I'm going out again and do something for those places, for those people living in these places who are not feeling that safe. Me, I have that other kind of suffering. That's at least how I can see that for myself.
Right. And I think this is why it's so important to tell these stories, because your personal exploration and sharing of your fear and your vulnerability, and then the contrast with the safety that you experienced, that is something that people over there are still going through every single day. That lack of safety, that trauma, that ever present danger. And what we're seeing now in Myanmar is an absolute destruction of any sense of human rights. They can do anything to you, to anyone of any age, at any time, and there's no accountability for what happens. They're living in that state of constant fear and instability. And you having experienced that and then come out of that and being able to describe it, that's really important for us as listeners that are away from that experience to know these are not just headlines, these are not just world events, but these are 50, 55 million people living every day under this kind of feeling of being besieged. And, this is also important because we have a wide base of practitioners in the audience. And I think for those Dhamma practitioners, especially those that haven't actually been in a region where there's instability or a lack of safety, I think there can be a danger in some cases, and hopefully it's not too often, of practitioners offering some kind of spiritual platitudes of something like, well, the Dhamma protects in this way, or, this is just a reminder of the truth of suffering. And there, when you're not actually living in that terror, there can be these kind of spiritual insights that are offered seemingly as a help, but are actually incredibly inappropriate and impractical for how you're actually living within this terror. And so I think it's also really valuable and important for practitioners hearing this to understand that whatever spiritual insights or stages you've come to, or whatever theories you have about the world or the way things are, if you have not actually lived under this terror, this is some of this kind of spiritual advice and these platitudes are not really that welcome or helpful at this time, seeing how the physical structure of society itself being safe is a prerequisite in many ways for being able to have a spiritual practice. And when that entire structure is in jeopardy, then we need to look at fixing that before we can look at engaging in the spiritual path. And so I think that and there can also be some talk from some practitioners, again, hopefully not too many, that these are just worldly events. They're just passing by. They're not impactful in terms of the greater spiritual Dhammic truths, and that's where you should put your attention. And I think that is something that can only be said with the privilege and luxury of not actually having to live under those conditions.
Yeah, totally agree with you that if you just bring this in as phrases and seen that not really backed up by the experience directly from the people who are living in there, that doesn't help much. That's true. But seeing, of course, that for me to see that the whole world, we're not only in Myanmar being in that, but in other countries, people are also suffering. We're not alone with that. At least it gives you a different perspective, or seeing at the history and seeing there will be always been wars and been difficulties there. So just seeing the nature of the world by looking at the history of the nature of Dhamma, that there is this dukkha, this suffering, and this is some cases more, in some cases less, and at least seeing that and keeping this in mind by having all this experience, that helped me a lot. So the truth of that, and also anicca, to seeing that things are not long lasting, they're rising and passing away. So that is something which is there, which is what we all are experiencing. But it is that fear that you have in one moment, it's there, and you can work with this, and you can see it. It rises and passes away, rises and passes away, and you can, when you see it disappearing in this moment, you can deal with this much better, and you can deal with this, with the dukkha, with the suffering that causes by that, also much better by that deeper truth. Whatever situation that you are, helps for me to let go. And we talked a lot with the teachers about this situation happening in Myanmar. And I was actually telling them, I've given the human rights class in the last months. And we're looking at situation in Africa, we're looking at situation in Syria and anywhere in the world, to see in that and to see the parallels that happen. And it feels like some ways we're connecting with our hearts to all the suffering in the world, all people who are having similar experience. And we're started to write the letters for the governments. This is the Amnesty International has a program, an education program there. So we're seeing that we're what we can do about this, to understanding the world, understanding different places, and where can we help, and putting this, seeing that perspective, it helped a lot. One thing I wanted to add there, that you say that for the experience in the countries. I've seen in by coming into the country 2007, the first time, I still see people are even there was a democratic movement already in place, but still see people living in fear, having this. They when I asked about the military, some of the situation, people didn't answer me openly, or only when they drove with the taxi. Please come here, and then I tell you when there's no microphones, no spies anywhere. So the people are much more in pressure and in fear at this time, to not speaking out openly. And I've seen these traumas from the country, from everyone, being very apparent at this time. And over the years, when I came back and building the project, I could see this democratic movement, how people are opening up, and they start. You see people dancing on the street and wearing jeans for the first time, and coloring their hair blue, and dancing to techno music on the street. And always found this a bit cute, to be honest, to see in the beginning, just like in a country experiencing first time freedom, freedom of speech and freedom of buying materials and using the mobile phone and Facebook, and just opening up to that. Sometime have a rather, and at the beginning, rather naive way of starting with that in many ways, which is natural when you just never had it and you start to experience that freedom and this access to the world. And then over the years, it went quite quick, like you're seeing a child passing through the teenager times, and they get more matured and got used to these things. And I could see this incredible change of many more companies come up, and great innovations and ideas, and people and foreigners coming in, and foreign companies, and things are being developing very much. And I've seen a youth developing in such an amazing way that now I could see that in the during the coup happen, how they're coming together and being I've been so proud by seeing these youth having this good heartedness. What I love about Burmese people so much, these good heart, this ethics on the right place, but also this fire burning for freedom, burning for democracy, to want to keep these values of freedom and open-mindedness, everything what we're actually also standing for, the human rights and supporting everybody with critical analytic thinking, connection to the world, all these things what Mudita Foundation is standing for, is living in the youth, the Generation Z, to bring this in, what they're fighting for. And seeing them made me so amazingly proud that they have developed in these 10 years, 5 years, 10 years now, such an amazingly, and being teaming up and supporting each other, forming these groups, doing the CDMs. 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, that wouldn't have been possible. They have learned so much, and studying these networks, and learning so much amazingly fast, that how they have been developing. And so by seeing that there was one comment about one guy, one demonstrator. He said, like, Myanmar is like the people in Myanmar are like a bird. They're been growing up. They couldn't fly, and now they're developing and got their wings ready, and they start spreading their wings and start their first tries to jump out of the nest and fly, and feel so free by that. And now there's the military coming and just breaking their wings, and the whole future is lost for them. I totally understand that if I would be there, would be Burmese youth, I would do exactly the same. This is nothing more to do than fighting until the end for democracy. I totally get this. No? Before there was trust and unity and openness, and now living in constant fear of somebody. They can drive the military truck out, they can just shoot you in the head anytime, they can take you, detain you, they can torture you anytime. Any person in that street, even a monk wearing the monk robes, can be a spy and trying to um, uh, telling anything to take you out anywhere. Security camera, they can see, they can do something. So living in the fear constantly is such a torture of mind and takes away the life quality by that. And also not only for the military, but there are many spies. You can't really say your opinion anymore openly, just like before. You never know, and who is on which side. And this mistrust among the people in the country, that's also harming the society immensely, and that causes that deep trauma that Myanmar has from the 60-year military dictatorship. And I could see that these wounds needed to heal over years. It took these 10 years for these wounds to heal slowly, and they're by far away from being healed now. But they start to heal. The younger generation, they're um, develop themselves, and have seen for many years of their life there is a free world. No, you can live in this freedom from 10 years old until 20, the most experience of their life, or around this time they can could see how that freedom looks like. And now going back to this terror before and fears, that's not a place you want to live in. This is not a society that you can prosper. No, that's very scary to see, and feel so sorry for anyone who's in there and need to experience these torture.
Right. And you mentioned now if you were a Myanmar person of a certain age, you would think about acting in this way or that way. You feel very much supportive of what they're doing and how they're engaging. I'm curious what you think about the monastic community. And of course, you're a foreign monastic, so that's a little bit different. And you've also referenced some monks that you were in touch with there that were maybe on the other side, maybe self-serving in terms of looking how they could benefit. But looking at the monastic community as a whole, what would you like to see from them? What do you think is the role of monks and nuns at this time? And balanced with that question, of course, is that by virtue of being a monk or a nun, you have renounced some aspect of worldly society. So you are not being an active member of running the ordinary human affairs of worldly society, and that's why you've decided to wear the robes. However, that is not a way of just escaping entirely and not having any responsibility or engagement. There is certainly a kind of moral righteousness or an ethical authority that they can have and they can assert. However, that has to be balanced with the responsibility of wearing those monastic robes that do make one different than an ordinary member of society. There are precepts that one has to follow and conventions that one has to adhere to that a layperson doesn't. So, with all of that in mind, and you've been in robes for so long that you certainly know a little bit about that discipline, uh, how would you like to see the monastic community responding at this time to what's going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. I see that there are many monks also from the more strict communities, more secluded communities like PAOK. They are saying that a monastic doesn't have anything to do with politics, and should be withdrawn by that and not cutting off for that. Of course, that's one opinion, but the monks, some monks have, and I understand this from their point of view. As I've been living secluded for many years in the forest, and just leave this for that. That's one of the opinion. It's definitely not my opinion. I see that we have some responsibility, but I see that in that some of the cases, that's what monks also stating and writing in on Facebook. I've seen that these comments had discussions about this. But what I see that many monks who are also active, not only practicing the meditation and being living secluded in the forest, but going out and serving the society, living the Dhamma in actual life outside, bringing these values also in other aspects of life, putting it in this way. They are that's what I would love to see more, and I've seen it already from a lot of monks in that in Myanmar, where they're joining the demonstration, or they're showing in other ways that they are not okay with that situation. And I think that in Myanmar, especially, that's what many people who haven't been to Myanmar maybe not understand completely, is that immense power that monks have. That the Saṅgha, they are very highly respected. That even the political leaders coming and asking for advice, and certainly within the communities, the monks are always in the villages or cities and suburbs. They're always leaders, who have a very important leading role in that community. And what the monks say, often the lay people will follow. So they are also it that doesn't need to be, the monks need to be going out and being very actively demonstrating. You don't say that every monk should do that. That would be always up to them. But positioning themselves very clearly, what is the Buddha saying about peace, have a peaceful mind, um, and having a peaceful life, and what are your duties. We're having these precepts as monks, especially for should be keeping for themselves, and should give this out as well for the lay people. I see that, at least for me, I can only speak for me, feel a sense of responsibility of sharing these democratic values of freedom of speech, freedom of choosing your life's plan, or the partner that you're living with, the circumstances in your lives, and what you're saying. And that's something that's been cut off by the military, and suppressed the people. And as monks, following and valuing these freedoms of mind, and of, for sure, the freedom of being safe, being free of torture, being free of the fear of being killed for any circumstances, for any reason what they make up. This is certainly not something which is in line with the Buddhist teaching, to be supporting that. So the monks, they should stand up, even when they don't go demonstrating, but showing and talking with their community about this, and showing what's right. There are human rights. You are a valuable person. Everybody has value, and they have rights. Children have rights. Adults have rights. Women rights. And this is not right. What is happening now? And what I see, that what is quite scary actually, from the higher monks, when they are close to some family members, from our teachers, or from seeing that people they are understanding, that even personally they going through a hardship, and saying, yeah, I understand you, please get in safety, make sure the monks saying that. But on the other hand, they're saying, but don't say anything against that leader, the Usandima, or the abbot of the monastery. Whatever they're doing, they are right, because they are high monks. They are high monks. They have maybe certain age, and they have a certain responsibility, or they get a respect from a lot of communities. So don't say anything against them, because this is not right. Whatever they say, you should follow them. You should do. They can also take whatever they want. They can do whatever they want, because they are such high monks, so they are untouchable. And this is something from a monastic community, what I see also, especially in Myanmar, is that you don't blame, you don't speak out clearly to monks when the monks don't follow their precepts. Like we have these monks and our monastery, this Tumingala, when he's drinking alcohol, people know that he's smelling after whiskey, and he's behaving in the way of hitting the children and doing things like this. Then in many ways, that's even not a monk for me. I should feel that nobody should respect such a person, or other monks were not following the precepts, not following the right way how the monks should live. And then for that, using the power and gaining things for their own, that's very harmful. And people, even and often in Myanmar, they know that, they see that, but they still don't speak up, because you should. This is such a strong in Myanmar culture. You should respect the Saṅgha, because not even the person, often they say, even this person doesn't behave right, but I respect the institution monastery, or respect the robes itself, and that's why I respect that person, and I just let this happen. And I can see this, for example, will not as easily happening in Thailand or in Sri Lanka, when the monks doesn't behave. Of course, there's cases like this as well, but it's more I experience it more in Thailand, when you're not following the precepts, or you're harming the society and the Sangha in that way, then people do speak up, and they're standing for that. And that's why you have a different form of Sangha there. So that's something in that the monk is not only respected just because he wears a robe, but you should look for the values of that monks that he has inside, and that he also has a responsibility that's from the other side, from the monk, to carry these values and speak up for them and bring this into society, guiding the people to the right way. So from both sides, there's often silence. From the monk side, what is this? How to implement these values, Buddhist values, and also if the monks by themselves don't live up to that. From the lay society, not pointing this out. This is something I feel it's a bit sad to see that in Myanmar.
Yeah, those are really good thoughts. And we'll see how that continues to develop with where the monastic community is engaged and what actions we're seeing among them. And with that, I just want to thank you so much for coming on, for sharing so vulnerably about a very difficult situation. And although you're now in physical safety, which I'm very relieved to know about, I know that the mental traumas and the other things that you're dealing with are still present. And so I wish you the best of health and safety, physical, mental, and otherwise. And thank you so much for all the work that you're doing on behalf of those who are not living in a free society where they're able to have the kind of voice that you and I have here today. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to telling the story and let people know about this. I think that's very important. Everybody who has had some experience there, sharing this out to the world, that we're all shaking hands and teaming up, and we're together we are strong to do something. We're isolated pockets. We can't do anything. So thank you for giving this opportunity, not only for me, but for so many other people as well, to telling their story and sharing, coming together. That's a great project you're doing here. Thank you.
After today's discussion, it should be clear to everyone just how dire the situation is in Myanmar. We are doing our best to shine a light on the ongoing crisis, and we thank you for taking the time to listen. If you found today's talk of value, please consider passing it along to friends in your network. And because our nonprofit is now in a position to transfer funds directly to the protest movement, please also consider letting others know that there is now a way to give that supports the most vulnerable, and to those who are especially impacted by this organized state terror. If you would like to join in our mission to support those in Myanmar who are resisting the military coup, we welcome your contribution in any form, currency, or transfer method. Every cent goes immediately and directly to funding those local communities who need it most. Donations go to support such causes as the Civil Disobedience Movement, CDM, families of deceased victims, and the purchasing of protective equipment and medical supplies. Or if you prefer, you can earmark your donation to go directly to the guest you just heard on today's show. In order to facilitate this donation work, we have registered a new nonprofit called Better Burma for this express purpose. Any donation you give on our Insight Myanmar website is now directed to this fund. Alternatively, you can visit our new Better Burma website, which is betterburma.org, and donate directly there. In either case, your donation goes to the same cause, and both websites accept credit cards. You can also give via PayPal by going to paypal.me/betterburma. Additionally, we can take donations through Patreon, Venmo, GoFundMe, and Cash App. Simply search Better Burma on each platform and you'll find our account. You can also visit either website for specific links to those respective accounts, or email us at info@betterburma.org. In all cases, that's Better Burma, one word, spelled BetterBurma. If you would like to give in another way, please contact us. Thank you so much for your kind consideration. You've been listening to the Insight Myanmar podcast. We'd appreciate it very much if you could rate, review, and/or share this podcast. Every little bit of feedback helps. You can also subscribe to the Insight Myanmar podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever else you get your podcasts to make sure you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. If you can't find our feed on your podcast player, please just let us know and we'll ensure it can be offered there in the future. Also, make sure to check out our website for a list of our complete episodes, including additional text, videos, and other information available at insightmyanmar.org. And I also invite you to take a look at our new nonprofit organization at betterburma.org. There was certainly a lot to talk about in this episode, and we'd like to encourage listeners to keep the discussion going. Make a post, request specific questions, and join in on discussions currently going on the Insight Myanmar podcast Facebook group. You're also most welcome to follow our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts by the same name. If you're not on social media, feel free to message us directly at info@insightmyanmar.org. Or if you'd like to start up a discussion group on another platform, let us know and we can share that forum here. Finally, we're open to suggestions about guests or topics for future episodes. So if you have someone or something in mind, please do be in touch. We would like to take this time to thank everyone who made this podcast possible. Currently, our team consists of 2 sound engineers, Mike Bink and Martin Combs. There's of course Zach Hessler, content collaborator and part-time co-host. Ken Pransky helps with editing, and a special Mongolian volunteer who is asked to remain anonymous does our social media templates. In light of the ongoing crisis in Myanmar, a number of volunteers have stepped in to lend a hand as well, and so we'd like to take this time to appreciate their effort in our time of need. And we're always on the lookout for more volunteers during this critical time, so if you'd like to contribute, definitely let us know. We'd also like to thank everyone who has assisted us in arranging for the guests we've interviewed so far. And of course, we send a big thank you to the guests themselves for agreeing to come on and share such personal, powerful stories. Finally, we're immensely grateful for the donors who made this entire thing possible. We want to remind our listeners that the opinions expressed by our guests are their own and don't necessarily reflect the host or other podcast contributors. Please also note that as we are mainly a volunteer team, we do not have the capacity to fact-check our guest interviews. By virtue of being invited on our show, there's a trust that they will be truthful and not misrepresent themselves or others. If you have any concerns about the statements made on this or other shows, please contact us. This recording is the exclusive right of Insight Myanmar podcast and may not be used without the expressed written permission of the podcast owner, which includes video, audio, written transcripts, or excerpts of any episodes. Also not meant to be used for commercial purposes. On the other hand, we're very open to collaboration, so if you have a particular idea in mind for sharing any of our podcasts or podcast-related information, please feel free to contact us with your proposal. If you would like to support our mission, we welcome your contribution. During this time of crisis, all donations now go towards supporting the protest movement in Myanmar through our new nonprofit, Better Burma. You may give by searching Better Burma on PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, GoFundMe, and Patreon, as well as via credit card at betterburma.org/donation. You can also give right on our Insight Myanmar website, as all donations given there are directed towards the same fund. And with that, we're off to work on the next show, so see you next episode.
Yeah.